Welcome to the All Axxess Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. This week's special guest, none other than Mr. John Tank Toland himself from the World Wrestling Entertainment, all over the Indies, of course, OVW. You've seen him all over. And welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Joseph. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Appreciate you taking the time. And let's kind of rewind way back to the very beginning. Growing up as a child or young adult, when did you first discover pro wrestling? Who were some of your favorites?
That is going back, I'll tell you. I'm now I'm going to date myself. Okay, so I got into it in around 1986. I was a runt, always was when growing up. I was always the shortest kid in my class. Got bullied a lot, and it was rough. It was rough for me, definitely. I remember getting chased home from school, running for my life like a gazelle from lions, and just going crying under my dining room table. And they just, I was basically, the runt, and was in, some special needs classes because I had undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia. And it was tough. It was tough because, kids were calling you every name in the book except for Tank. So that's why Tank's so important to me now. Yeah. One of the reasons. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened. And one day I was over at my friend's house, these twins, Dave and Joe, and I was doing a sleepover, and I just saw wrestling on TV, and I just stopped, and I was just like, wow. I was like, if I could be like those guys, I won't ever have to worry about being bullied again, because they were just like real life, superheroes. And between seeing them and then I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger doing bodybuilding and pumping iron, and I just went like right to the gym, and in my community center had like basketball, but it had a little dungeon that was like a gym set up. So I started working out at like 11 years old, and that started giving me the confidence to stand up for myself. And it also gave me a dream. It started giving me a dream to be a wrestler. So that's where I first got my dream. Just it started from being a runt to wanting to be, be something. I wanted to go from basically being an underdog to undeniable. That's what I wanted to do. So, yeah.
And that's exactly what you did. And, was there a certain point where you said, what, this is, obviously you were training early, but this is what I want to do for sure. I'm going to go for it now. When was that moment kicking in?
Yeah. I mean, I always dreamed and always told people when I was a kid, I wanted to be like, there was a couple things I wanted to do when I was a kid. Like, one of them was, I want to either be well, first and foremost, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. But then, like, I was always like, it'd really be cool to be a rock star too, and then a professional stuntman. So those were like things I wanted to do. I always wanted to be some type of entertainer, even though I felt kind of, even though I was bullied and I was scared to speak out and to be outgoing at first. Once I got more confidence behind me, it gave me the ability to dream and to realize that maybe I can fulfill those dreams. So that's kind of how I went that route. But you asked me a question about some of my, favorite wrestlers when I was a kid. And just to get back to that, because I forgot to touch on that, I apologize. But like, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Perfect, some those were, some of the guys, Jake the Snake, and Roddy Piper. I mean, like, all the big names back then. I just enjoyed watching them, and I think Hulk Hogan was someone I just obviously really got into because he was like, he was the poster child for the company at the time, and the whole say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and train and all that stuff. It kind of resonated with me. I was like, oh, if I could do that, I could become just like him. So
yeah.
So.
And where did you get your training? When did you actually break in?
Yeah, so I continued to watch it, and then I went to college to Westchester University and found people who liked wrestling as well, and we'd be sitting there watching kind of date myself again, watching the Monday Night Wars, WCW versus WWF, and I was just so into both of those, and I'd be practicing out in the courtyard, watching the tapes and rewinding them, because back then it was VHS. And so I'd watch the tapes, rewind them. Okay, how'd they do that? How'd they get in this move? What'd they do here? What was the technical aspect of this? And then we go out in the courtyard and practice. And that's kind of where I started. But then I said, you know what? I know I'm getting my degree and everything, but I still want to go to a school and hey, maybe I'll get lucky and I could become a weekend warrior, and then who knows what will happen, So I was like, I still want to chase that dream, even though I have my degree. So that's what I did. I found the Monster Factory, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. And when I graduated, I gave him a call. It was only about 20 minutes away from where I was living and teaching. So it was great. And I tried out, and he said, you got something special, kid. I see something in you. And I'm like, yeah, what? the money to pay for the school, but no, but it was cool. Cause I know that it's a business, and he'd probably say that to a million people, but I felt it still gave me the boost of confidence to say, okay, I'm not a total dud. I could probably get in there. And I've been a very athletic person my whole life, very good at sports. So I felt very comfortable in that ring. I kind of took to it very naturally. And from there, I just started working and training at the Monster Factory. Yeah, back in 2000.
And what was he like, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp? What was he kind of like behind the scenes?
Very nice guy. He was a very nice guy. I mean, you know how the wrestling business is, though. A lot of workers, a lot of characters. And he was no different. He was one of those old school guys. He had a very big personality, but very, very nice. He's a good person, like overall, always very good to me. And he cared about the business, and that was really cool. And he cared about the people that came in, even though he was, we were basically dollar signs to him. And I get that, and that's cool. But he was invested in what we were doing and cared about, our training, and also, cared about our training because that was good for his business. So, so that's cool. But I liked him. He's a good guy. Yeah.
What would you say is your biggest takeaway from the Monster Factory in your time there?
Whew. It was a really good jump point for learning the technicals and learning the basics, and also learning how to conduct yourself in the business. That was one of the things, a lot of the guys who grew up, doing backyard wrestling and stuff like that, they never learned the locker room etiquette, ring etiquette, the important things that you don't learn by just watching and training. All the things that you learn that are important to the business. Just like if you were working out in the gym, there's certain etiquette that you use in the gym, and just in life. So I think it was good, a good starting point for me, and that was great because it gave me opportunities, and it was a well-known place. Saying I trained at the Monster Factory, said, okay, well, this guy at least got proper training, and now he can, we'll give him a shot. So, and that's kind of where it went from there. I did my first matches at the Monster Factory for about, I want to say I did about 10 months before I got a shot outside of the Monster Factory.
And fast forward maybe a year or two, you were working for PCW.
Right.
Of course, you do a lot of, tag teams right off the bat. You're getting in tag team action. You're going against Joey Matthews, Christian York, who were a very well-known tag team at that time on the indie scene. They were working everywhere and had a great reputation. What was it like working with them?
Man, it's fantastic. I mean, they're both very talented guys. Joey is so smart, so talented. I have a lot of respect for him and Christian. But I just got to work with Joey more through, the indies and then OVW and WWE and stuff. So it was really great to see how his mind thinks. And man, I really feel like, if he had been a little bit taller or been a different time in the business, because, when we were there, it was like still like a lot of the big guys, it wasn't as much, getting into guys that are not as in shape or, body guys in general. I think that he could have been so much bigger than even, the success he had, because he's fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. And Christian York, I got to work with him a few times. Really liked him. He's got a good mind. He's got a good charisma about him. I like them both a lot. They're both good guys. Yeah.
In that same year, 2002, you would team with Gilbert, Dwayne Gill, and you guys would lock it up with Dave and Dean, the Power Company twins.
Man, you are good with getting your information, man. I mean, you're deep digging here, man. That's really good. That was actually, believe it or not, that was my very first match outside of the Monster Factory. I got wind that the Backseat Boys were not going to be making that PCW show because they were double booked. Donnie B didn't even know this at the time. As you know, Donnie B is Mike Bucci's, Nova's, or Simon Dean's twin brother. And so I took the drive up there, and I said, hey, I'll be happy to. I, of course, went with my gear. I said, hey, I'm John Toland. Nice to meet you. I've been wrestling for X amount of time. I just want to be able to help with whatever you need here, ring setup, whatever you should do in the business, and make yourself valuable. And I said, I'm here. I got my gear. If you need me for any reason. And I just kind of did whatever was needed to be done, but I always kind of kept an eye on where he was, because I knew eventually that call was coming. And I was right there when that call came in, and he was not happy. He was pretty pissed. What do you mean you're not coming? And so I was like, and I just, after he got on the call, I was like, hey, is there anything else I can do for you? And he's like, hey, you said you got your gear, right? And he goes, okay. He goes, I'm gonna need you on the show tonight. I said, okay, great. I said, oh, that's awesome, thanks. And sure enough, that's where I got to tag team with Gilbert against the Power Twins. I think that was their name, right? The Power Twins. And it was interesting. Yeah, it was an interesting match, and yeah, it was. I remember one of the things Gilbert was supposed to slingshot me in from the outside, and I was going to come in with a double clothesline, and it just got totally botched, and it was so funny. But I mean, not funny at the time, but looking back on it, it's cringy but funny. And
I know the Power Company twins are guys who basically they like to go over the entire match beforehand, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do get a lot of that on the indies where people want to plan out every little single thing. And one of the good things with training at the Monster Factory, going back to that, was that we would have to go in there and just call a match in there. And that was one of the good things about it, was because it was very old school, because we'd be doing training on, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And on the weekends during the day, Larry Sharp would have, birthday parties in there, for kids and stuff like that. And so we would do matches in front of the kids for practice, and we'd just go out there and just call it in the ring and have a good time. And it was great. It was great. And it was a great way to get your reps in and to work without having to have anything planned, and just feel each other in there and see also what the kids or the fans were enjoying, so you knew what to work with. Okay, this is working, this isn't. Let's go back to this. Let's have them think this is going to happen and swerve them, slip on a banana peel, whatever. So it was really good. So when I got on the independent scene, and you just saw how many people wanted to plan each and everything, and you're someone that's got short-term memory, ADHD, you're like, shit, how am I going to remember all this? But you learn to work with it, and then you learn that some of your best matches are the ones that you have a few things planned, some important spots that are important to telling the story. but other than that, like, man, just get in there and have fun, feel the crowd, feel each other out, and make it happen.
And less than a year later, 2003, you're in OVW. Why don't you tell us about how that came about for you, getting your foot in the door there? And initially there, you form a team with Chris Cage, of course, known as Adrenaline. You guys would team up specifically against Cade and Jindrak early on. Also, any memories of that match?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Basically, how that came to be was I was working on the independents, and there was just an announcement online that OVW was doing their very first camp, a week-long camp, and it was kind of like a tryout to see if any talent would be good enough to earn a developmental contract or to come to OVW to train. And they said they weren't sure. I don't think they were sure exactly how many people they were taking, but I know a ton of people applied, not only in the States, but around the world, because there was people from Europe and other places, Ireland and England and Scotland and I don't know, other places. I just remember there were other people there. And so I was like, well, I'm going to just, throw my hat in that ring. And no pun intended, and see what happens. So I sent my stuff in with you had to send in basically like an application with a promo pick. And I did that, and I was like, oh man, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. Didn't hear anything. And the deadline was coming, and I called and I said, I just want to call just to see, not that I was expecting it to get the call, because I knew there was so many people applying. But I called and I said, and Julie, who's Danny Davis's wife now, answered the call, and I said, hey, my name's John Toland. I just want to see if you happen to get my application. Just want to make sure. And she said, let me check. And so she checked, and she's like, I do not see your application. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, look, I know the deadline's tomorrow. I'm going to overnight this. I'm going to do it again. I'll overnight it and I'll get it to you. I just want to make sure. And she said, oh yeah, okay, no problem. And she's very polite, very nice, and sent it. And I called the next day, and she answered. I was like, hey, and she's like, just John? I was like, yes. She's like, we got it. She's like, and Danny looked at it. She goes, he thinks you look impressive. Danny and Jimmy both saw it, and they really like what they see. So, we'll see what happens. I said, okay, thank you. And sure enough, I got the invite, and and I found out that there was thousands of people who actually applied for that and they only took 50 people to come and train there. And over the week's time, it was a lot of training with Rip Rogers, who's absolutely the man. Happy belated birthday. He just had his birthday a couple days ago. It was him and Dr. Tom and Jimmy and Danny and a couple other, Rocky Johnson, a couple of people were there just watching and seeing what they thought. And it was really cool. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, a lot of drills, a lot of kind of selling yourself, both in the ring and out of the ring. So yeah, it was really cool experience. It was a really cool experience, and a lot of matches, a lot of drills, and it was really cool. And I guess I did well enough to get that call. I got that call like a couple months after we did it, and Jimmy called me and said, hey, we want to bring you in and have you work on that developmental contract, and you'll be joining our contract class. And sure enough, my first week that I got there Derby weekend, the first weekend of May. I know I'm rattling, and I'll go down a vortex, so I apologize. But basically got there first weekend and of May, and that Wednesday, sure enough, they just gave me a match, and I worked against my very first match was against Doug Basham, who was the champion. And I was like, I couldn't believe when I heard my name called that I was going to be working the champion in match. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it'll be a squash or whatever. And no, they actually gave me a lot. It was a really good match. It was a back and forth match. And I was just surprised that they gave me that opportunity. So it was phenomenal. And I lost the match, but they really gave me a nice rub, and they showed like, hey, this kid's a fighter, and like, they pumped me up, so it was good. Then the very next week, I'm like, okay, well, that was really cool. I'm not expecting anything this week, and sure enough, I got to wrestle Randy Orton the very next week, and that was freaking crazy. And Randy, actually, I was the first one to ever take his RKO. Because he's like, he's like, Tank, DDP's not using the diamond cutter. He's not in the business. I mean, he's not in the WWE anymore. He's not going to start using that. I was like, okay, cool. He's like, would you mind if I give it to you? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And so I took that, and then, and then next thing you know, Nova got hurt. Nova injured his knee, and he needed surgery. And we're both from Jersey. We know each other. I worked for his brother, and Jimmy thought, hey, this will be a great idea, a great storyline, that you're his boy from Jersey, and he's going to replace you because you're injured, and I'll put you with Cage. And that's, at the time, Jindrak and Cade were champions. And we go out there to Kentucky Kingdom, and we team up, and next thing you know, we win the Southern Tag Team titles. And it was a whirlwind. That first, those first couple months at OVW were just crazy. It was insane. It was a phenomenal time, learning so much while, just trying to get better. But at the same time, like, getting to wrestle really good talent, phenomenal talent, and getting to, win tag team titles. It was just phenomenal.
And what was your partner at that time, Chris Cage? What was he like behind the scenes?
What a jerk, man. Oh, God, I can't. No, I'm just kidding. He's one of my boys. I love that guy. We still text back and forth here and there. And whenever I hear like our theme music at a football game or wherever, it's just like, I'll be able to click it. I'll be like, yeah. But yeah, no, he's an awesome guy. Very talented as well. He was a very laid back, chill guy. And I just felt like we had good chemistry, and it was a lot of fun with him. So yeah, it was really, really great. And it was cool because Nova was part of that whole thing too. Because he was like supposed to be there helping manage us while, cause he was injured, and then, we had a whole, and then he did a heel turn when he got healed up, and he was able to return, and he wanted his spot back, and it ended up being me versus him, and who would win the spot in Adrenaline and stuff like that. So, because he wanted the title, even though we won it. So it was a whole storyline. It was really cool though. It was cool. And then we got to work against him a lot when he was in something called the Jersey Shore Crew. Yeah, really cool.
And Chris went on to become one of the Dude Busters, was it?
Caden Cross, I think, was it? Yes. I think his name was Caden Cross. Yeah. It's so funny because guys go up to the WWE, and I can't remember their WWE names. I remember their OVW or ROH names or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Now, working with Matt Capitelli, any memories of Matt?
Matt, rest in peace, was one of the nicest, genuine, authentic people you could ever meet in that business. He was too good for the business. He was too good for this world. He was just such a kind person. And I even told him, I said, I wish I could be as good a person as you are, because he was just a genuinely kind-hearted person. And when everything went down with him, with getting sick and everything, it was felt by everybody in that locker room, every fan, because he wasn't just a good, talented worker, and he could have been huge. He could have been really big. He had such charisma. He had a good mind for the business, great athletic ability, but he was even a better person. So yeah. So he was phenomenal, and I loved working with him. I got to wrestle with him, singles matches as well as tag team. He tag teamed with Johnny Jeter. They're the Thrill Seekers, and it was really a lot of fun. We had our feuds with him when I was a heel, and it was a lot of fun, man. Matt Capitelli was an amazing guy, and when I see things like how Hardcore Holly, the whole Hardcore Holly thing, giving him the Alabama Slammer and stuff, and then beating him up on Tough Enough, and that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because Holly's like, oh, well, these guys were laughing and joking around and pretend fun and just messing around, thought it was a joke and stuff. And Matt, I saw Matt laughing. And so I said, I'm going to make an example of him. It's like bullshit, man. Don't give me that, man. If you knew Matt, you would know that he's not someone to disrespect anybody, disrespect the business. You just want to take liberties and try and prove that you're some tough guy, whatever. It's wrestling. Don't take yourself so seriously. Right. And so yeah, he laid it in on Matt, and that was not right. I don't care who says what in the business. If you're an old school guy and you don't like it, I don't care. You can go take it and shove it up your yeah. So that's what I think of that.
And you're working regularly in OVW. 2003, you start making TV appearances, and Val Venus, Sunday Night Heat. What was it like coming out for the first time for a television taping?
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I wasn't up there doing many like tapings like before I just got thrown right into it. I was up there to watch a couple times, but we got thrown right into the mix as soon as they wanted to bring us up. I was actually supposed to go up sooner than I was, but I actually tore my bicep, and that kept me out for a while. So they had a whole other plan for me than what would have happened. But which I would have loved to have seen what that was and how it would have gone down. But unfortunately, things happen, and other paths get planned for you. So yeah.
What would you say is
it was a good time? It was a good time.
Yeah. And the greatest challenge within the wrestling industry, what has your personal greatest challenge been thus far?
Man, well, being a guy who's only like 5'6" and selling yourself to get from the small independents all the way up to the WWE, the land of the giants as they call it. That was a tough part of it. But I think man, when I was there, I really had a lot of confidence in myself as I made it through the independents up to OVW. I really had a lot of self-belief and positivity in the business and everything. But at the time when I was, in the WWE and up on the road, and I got partnered, I got set with a partner, not by my choice, Chad, Chad, who ended up being Chad Dick, as our tag team. That was a challenge because we did not have any chemistry. I tried to. He was also he was younger and immature, and not for that to be a knock on him. It was just he was just a younger person, immature, not really getting certain aspects of the business or knowing when to just kind of sit back and listen a little bit, and because there's 4 people in a match because we were tagging, and just to know how to not only that to read the room, and he didn't do that a lot, and he really caught heat a good amount of times, which when you're in a tag team that can rub off on you as well. So that was tough because he got heat with certain people like JBL, and then of course that rubs down to onto me, and it's tough, but I managed to keep the heat off of me as much as possible. But when your tag partner has it good enough, you can't help but feel some of it. So yeah, so that would probably be my toughest part, and just the time that we were in the business, there was still a lot of the old school mentality of hazing the new guys, and which is fine. I get it. Me and my boys would prank each other all the time and play jokes on each other, and it was all good fun because we're also boys. And I also know when you're getting into this, when I was a lifeguard on the beach patrol and I was a rookie, the veteran guards would play jokes on you and do things, and so or sports teams, whatever. That's just part of it. And I rolled with it, kept my mouth quiet, and it was recognized, and they stopped bothering me. But Chad would get a little upset about it and say some things, and then they'd mess with them more. So, and many times I had some of the guys come to me and say, "Hey, you're good. We're not going to mess with you anymore, but you got to talk to your partner, man, because he's got to chill out and realize that, you know, he's got to take the lumps that come to him. And it's like, I know I'm trying. Myself as well as other guys, like Nova tried to talk to him. Bobby Lashley tried to talk to him. Boogeyman tried to talk to him. Other guys that, you know, were in our group at the time. And you know, it was tough, but that was a tough time to be there. So
when you're traveling around from town to town, city to city, you know, did you have any favorite venues that you would go to, whether it be, you know, in the big leagues or on the independent scene?
I mean, like, you know, for me, you know, the convention hall in Atlantic City was cool because that's where I saw my first WrestleMania. I got to pat Hulk Hogan on the shoulder after he beat the Macho Man. That was one of the huge things for me. Like, he was walking back, he just won. He was sweaty as anything. He walks by, I pat him on the shoulder, my hand's full of sweat. I'm like, I wipe it on my brother's face. My brother's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "That's Hulk Hogan's sweat." He goes like, "I don't care, it's sweat." I was like, meanwhile, I'm like, "I'm never washing my hand again," you know. And but no, that was really cool. So, you know, that was a cool place because I got to see that. And then the Wells Fargo Center, which is Philadelphia, where I got to work, which was basically for me like wrestling in my hometown. Being from Margate, New Jersey, it's like that's where I'd go to watch, you know, all the Phillies, you know, teams play, and you know, Flyers and all that, and Sixers. That's where they play, and it was really cool. But I mean, being at the you know, a sold out Staples Center in LA was really cool. The Cow Palace up in San Francisco, just different venues throughout the country were really cool. You know, but there was just a lot of good memories as far as going to those venues and seeing how grand it was, and especially Philadelphia overall, just because I had gone to WCW and WF shows there and was in that audience saying to myself, one day I can see myself being in there. And it was great. So when I got to actually perform in that venue and look up to where I was sitting, that was a surreal moment and a really awesome time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What a moment. Yeah. Now it's ironic, you know, you were a real life lifeguard. Mm-hmm. Chad Wick played a lifeguard as Billy Kryptonite on the independent scene. So that's kind of funny, you know, the two worlds colliding there. But, you know, going back to that time for you, what was that like being a lifeguard? Any experiences that you could tell us about?
Oh, man, it was, hey, look, growing up on the beach in Margate, New Jersey was a phenomenal time. It's a great beach town, great beaches. And I started at 15 years old, so it was great. I didn't have to worry about bussing tables or working at an ice cream stand or whatever, you know. It was great, and I got to learn a lot with, you know, talking to people and feeling confident with my abilities and myself to go out and be responsible to you know, keep an eye on people and rescue them when they need to be. I mean, I've had more saves than I can possibly ever imagine. I did it until 2020. I came back after wrestling and went back to lifeguarding. I mean, when I stopped wrestling with WWE and moved back here, I still do wrestling, but just doing the indies. But I went back to lifeguarding, and I finished up in 2020. And I mean, I've had so many rescues. I was a lieutenant on the beach patrol, and I've had some really cool things like wave runner chases. Like one time there's this drunk guy on a wave runner, and he was zipping through the crowds on a crowded Saturday. And next thing you know, me and the captain hop on the Sea-Doo, and I'm riding, you know, shotgun behind him, holding on. He's flooring it, and we're catching up to this guy. And I shit you not, this was just like Baywatch. I wish we had the video, but we ride up, we catch up to him, and I literally leap from the back of the Sea-Doo to his Sea-Doo and bear hug him. And I got one arm around him, and I'm gonna grab him on him, and he's trying to fight me. And I grab the throttle, and I just throttle that thing, and I turn it right into the beach. And the police are there waiting, and I turn it into the beach it, and I just throw him off the Sea-Doo, wow. And the cops are there to get him. So that was a pretty cool thing. That was a pretty cool moment, you know. So that was one of the more fun moments than you know, having to work on people with CPR or you know, other injuries or worrying about, you know, dragging someone in drowning. But it was a very rewarding job, a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, that I worked with, and just people that were, beach patrons, visiting. So it was a great experience.
Adrenaline to the next level, no pun intended.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of adrenaline in it, but it was a very rewarding, fun job. It's a job I do for free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very rewarding, like you said, and to help people and be there to help, is a big deal. A lot of people don't step up, and that's an important job.
It is. Even though it looks like you're just sitting there getting tan and having a good time, which you are. It's a lot of sitting around in a box and talking to your partner, but you're always keeping an eye on things, on making sure that things are staying safe, because you never know when it's going to go down. So yeah.
So 2004 OVW, you worked with the Troubleshooters, Chris Masters, the Masterpiece, and Brent Albright. What are your memories working with them?
That was great, man. I mean, both really good guys. Masters is still out there on the indies. He's doing a really good job. I think he calls himself Sexy Jesus or something like that. Great guy. I used to like to give him shoot spears, like when we were in the ring. Like we always joked about it. I'd hit him with a spear for real, because he's a big guy and he could take it. But it was funny. And Brent Albright's he was a really good technical worker. He is a really good guy. I had a really good match with him in Ring of Honor at the Manhattan Center. I remember one of those. I mean, besides just OVW, I mean, having a good time with one of those matches. That was the last time I worked them. But working with those guys, they're good. They're a fun tag team to work against. And things I remember most about that kind of stuff are, the funny stuff we'd talk about in the back, like, hey, what if we did this, or what if we did that, or just more so laughing. Like guys like them and Capitelli and Jeter were always so much fun to work with, because they're just fun guys that you're boys with, and so you could talk about having some fun. Yeah.
We talked about your greatest challenge within the industry. On the flip side of that, what was the most rewarding part of it been for you?
Man, most rewarding part would, I got my wife out of it, so that's the most rewarding part of it. So I got my dream woman. So, but yeah, I mean, outside of that, like the fans, seeing the fans, making them happy. I think that's a big part of it for me. And I'm not just saying that. It's like I really love the fans, because I was one, and I never lost sight of that. And it always makes me happy when I could connect with one, or a kid or something. And then, later on they reach out to me and be like, hey, I got into the business, or I still think about you, and you were a really positive influence, because I like to think of myself as a positive person, and if I can share anything that's positive with other people, or give some good positive light to people, then that's a big thing for me. So I like to be just a good positive person in the business, and so that was a big part of it for me, was interacting with the fans and just trying to give the best part of me to them, so, and entertaining them. So yeah, so that's probably pretty much it for that.
And another match you'd have 2004 for OVW, you'd work with Akio and Sakota. What was it like working with those guys?
Oh yeah. Fun time. Those guys, man, I feel like they could have done more too. Like, I feel like there's certain people in the business that could have gotten a better shake out of it. And I'm not excluding myself from that as well, but it was the business at the time. They're smart guys. They know what they're doing. A lot of the guys back then, they had a good psychology, and they knew what they're doing. And we had set up some really fun matches, and and I'd listen to them, because, I'd been in the business for a little bit at that point, but at the same time, hey, look, you can never, stop learning the business. Like they say, the day you think you've learned it all, it's time to get out. So I always loved working with a bunch of different people, and I felt like they brought something different. Same with like Spanky in London. They brought out different things. I learned something from everyone I worked with, whether it's good things or things not to do. And yeah, so they're really good, nice people to work with. Yeah.
And of course, OVW, obviously you were with Chris Cage for quite a while. You transitioned with Chad Toland. You guys have become the Blonde Bombers in OVW. You'd work with Elijah Burke and Mark Henry. What was it like working with them? Any memories?
Man, yeah, I hated being a Blonde Bomber. I'll tell you what. No, not that I hated being a Blonde Bomber. I hated having to dye my hair platinum blonde. I'd never been blonde in my life. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I almost feel like it was a rib on me. Yeah, let's have him dye his hair because Chad's is blonde. But whatever. We're the Blonde Bombers. And we started working against Elijah and Mark Henry. And Elijah actually was still very green at that point. He had a lot of charisma and a lot of natural ability, but he was, he's still very green. And but he got a good push, and he used it. And he took advantage of it, and that's great. And I like Elijah, but and Mark Henry Mark Henry. I mean, he's great. For such a big guy, he's just so athletic and every bit as strong as you would think and more. So I remember one time I was at the gym. And he comes into the gym, and I'm throwing my weights around, and for my size and my weight, I was phenomenally strong. And he came in, he's like, "Yeah, mind if I work with you?" And I think I had on like I don't know, I had on either like 315 or 405 or something, and I'm pumping. And he's like, "Yeah," he's like, he just gets down, no warm up or anything. He's just like boom, 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 throwing it up like there's nothing on it. And I was just like, "Geez, that's a whole other level of strong." And I remember one time he gave me a bear hug, and I was just like, okay, I know you're not even putting like 5% of your force into this, but I feel like I'm about to bust. So, but it was great working with them. And, again, like Elijah was green, so he didn't really do a lot of the stuff, but I just sat there, listened to Mark. And a lot of times I'd also just listen to Jimmy, because Jimmy was the man with tag team. Jimmy's one of the smartest guys in the business. He's an encyclopedia of wrestling, and he's phenomenal. So I was really lucky to be in a tag team, and the fact that Jimmy was there to learn from, because who better really to learn from than one of the greats like Jimmy? There's only a handful of people that know tag team wrestling and stuff to the level, and psychology to the level that he does. Yeah. So yeah. So I was really, really lucky and fortunate to learn from Jimmy. And so a lot of times the guys I was working with, we'd also get feedback from Jimmy, of course, too.
And you've been around a lot of minds in the business, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Danny Davis of OVW, Larry Sharp, like we spoke about. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I would say one of the best pieces of advice for not just the business, but in life. I heard it from a few different people, but one of the main people I think was Tommy Dreamer, when he said, and I've heard this from other, people as well, but I just remember specifically Tommy Dreamer saying this one time. He's like, "Hey, look, always be good to everybody when you're on your way up, because at some point you're going to hit that top or as high as you can go, and there's only another way that you're going to go, and that's down. And you're going to see those same exact people on the way down, most likely. So always remember to take good care of people, to be good to people, because you're going to see them again at some point, because you're not always going to be on the way up. You're going to come down." So yeah, in a roundabout way, that's what he said. So, it's not verbatim, but yeah.
And so chiming in,
that's me anyway. I like to always try and be good to people, because I just follow the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chiming in your inner fan, there's different ways to look at it, personal favorites, or whoever made the most money, or the biggest star, whatever way you want to look at it. Who is your personal Mount Rushmore of pro wrestling, any era?
Man, Mount Rushmore. Well, I'm always going to put Stone Cold up there right away, because I'm such a mark for Stone Cold, man. He's just such a cool character. I mean, there's just something about him that's, how could you not love Stone Cold? I mean, he was a solid worker, and he could just talk. He just had the gift, and I just love, and he was just really him. Like, it was just him just turned up a little bit, and that's the way you should be sometimes be in the business, is just like be you, just turned up to 11, and that was Stone Cold, and he's just a really cool guy. And I'd seen so many of his matches that were just so cool, and I just really like him. So yeah, so we'll go with Stone Cold. Man, it's hard, man. There's different reasons why you put people on Mount Rushmore. I mean, do I put Hulk Hogan up there? I put him up there because he was one of the people that had the very first, real impact on me, to get into the business. And I was fortunate enough to tell him that out in LA one time. We were working out at the Gold's Gym. And I said, hey man, I just want to let you know that, like, what an impact you had on, on my wanting to get into the business and stuff. So, but so I'd put him up there. I mean, it's hard to come up with a full without, but I mean, there's guys I like. There's guys I like that not necessarily would be up on, the Mount Rushmore, but there's guys I really appreciate and like the wrestling. Like, I love Jericho. I've liked watching him when he's in Japan, and there's a lot of Guerrero and all. I like a lot of the guys that were like, right in that cruiserweight, light, heavy, middleweight type of range, because it was, I'm that, I'm 5'6", 200 and something pounds. And, but I just liked watching guys who could move fast. I wasn't always a fan of the big guy wrestlers. Like, I wasn't, I mean, it was cool to see guys like, Andre or The Undertaker, and, guys that are something like, because, The Undertaker, man, I mean, for a guy his size, he's really athletic. Yeah. But, I always liked guys that were, a little faster moving, and sometimes a little bit more technical, or could do certain things that were like, flippy doos and shit. I like some of that stuff. But although I think there's a little bit too much of that nowadays. I think there's a little too much of the planned acrobatic, all this craziness, no selling stuff. It's a little insane to me that, some of the psychology of things have gone out the window. But maybe because I'm a little bit more old school. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, for me personally, I don't mind a lot of the acrobatics. I mean, it's awesome, and it really brings puts on a show. But at the same time, moves that used to be considered a finishing move, now you can see 10 of them in one match, and they'll kick out, and it's just like, I don't know, it's tough.
When I see someone nipping up from a power bomb or a DDT, or like some of these moves, they just got a spike DDT. And they get right up and give the guy a clothesline. It's like, okay, I get it, strong style or whatever. Yeah. But it's just, and I'm not calling anyone out. Like I see guys like, Will Ospreay and some of the other guys. But like, I mean, phenomenal athletes, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they do know probably how to tell a story, or how to use the psychology. But sometimes I know in this era and what the fans are expecting, I guess they just like, okay, this is what we'll do. So it's crazy. But like, it was best said, like, like I think it might have been Jimmy Cornette or Al Snow or Lance Storm or Tommy Dreamer. Oh, or maybe, no, it was actually, I think it was Paul Heyman. I think he said it. He's like, he goes, if you see a train wreck, you're like, holy, whoa, that's insane. But if you see one every week or every day, it's like, oh, there's another train wreck. Or if you see fireworks, once a year, it's cool. It's 4th of July or New Year's or whatever. You see them once or twice a year. It's like, oh, cool, watch the fireworks. But you see them every day. And it's also, again, how do you top it? How do you top it? Like, it's like, so
Less
it's
is
like,
more.
yeah, less is more. Exactly. Less is more. So that's kind of how I view it. And also another thing is, the fans, when they're watching, they're always like, 5 to 7 seconds behind what you do, like for things to register and for them to actually take it in. So if you see someone powerbomb, nip up, boom, do something right back, it's like, yes, it looks really cool, but they're not only are you not selling what just happened, which is it's not believable as it is sometimes getting up from some of these things.
Yeah.
But to do things back to back to back to back, it's like not only are the fans not able to register it, and it's taking away from the move, I feel like it's sometimes making someone look weak. If you're giving all this stuff, it's not that they're looking stronger. It's that you can't put someone out with that stuff. It's like, I don't know. And it's just.
It depreciates the move. And as a fan, it kind of, you don't have time to appreciate each move.
Right.
How quick they're going.
That's the whole thing. Less is more. Exactly. And slow the hell down. That's why you do it. You can have your quick moments,
right.
But anyway.
And just kind of staying on that topic of inner fan, chiming that in, obviously you've mastered the craft of tag team wrestling throughout your career. Some of your favorite tag teams.
Some of my favorite tag teams. Rock and Roll Express, like Midnight Express, I don't know. Some of the older tag teams I really liked. I like some of the old school stuff. Man, it was fun to watch the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian and guys like that. Sometimes I just like random people put together too, like when they were put together for a little while. That was kind of fun, but it was fun to watch, Ray and Eddie and stuff like that. So, even though as a tag team guy myself, I did like watching a lot of tag team wrestling, but I still liked a lot of single stuff. So, because sometimes it was like nice to watch stuff that you weren't always involved in. Because I was a tag team guy for a long time, and I always liked doing single stuff. So, I got lumped in being a tag team guy, but I still like to do the single stuff. So I'd like to watch a lot of the singles matches. So. But I always loved watching, the Dudley Boys and stuff like that too, because they're very smart. And when I got to work with them, it was really cool. It was really cool because they're legends in the business, especially in the tag team division, and getting to work with them and learn some from them was really cool too. Yeah.
2005 for OVW, the Blonde Bombers against Nick Nemeth, Ken Doane. Of course, they'd go on to become the Spirit Squad. Any memories of those guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, I watched Nick take his first bumps. He was green, and he just got, he got the shot to come to OVW, and same with Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was another one. So there's some guys that like went on to become big time, and I got to watch them take some of their first bumps. And I remember even and Doane had been wrestling, but he was so young. He was so young when he was in OVW. I mean, he wasn't even able to drink yet. He was so young. Yeah. And same with Aaron Stevens. Like Aaron Stevens wasn't even 21 yet when he was there. And Mike Mondo. And so there's guys that were young and came into the business and were green. But you could just tell there's something special about them. And Nick was definitely one of them. And Ken was really good. And obviously Ken went on to do other things outside of just, in the ring, which is really good for him. I'm happy for him. And it's awesome to see, Nick, emerge as Dolph Ziggler and just do all this stuff. And it's just like, it's so good to see people like really, I love when I see people from OVW, especially guys that I'm friends with, go on to really make something themselves.
Yeah.
Really
Ken
cool.
Started very young. I remember I used to ring announce Ken when he was Broadway Ken Phoenix. I mean, he was probably 17, 18 years old,
Yeah. Obviously, you're from that area. So, So you got to see him when he was getting his start with Killer Kowalski and stuff.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's really awesome. Awesome.
So, of course, Ring of Honor, you spent some time there as well. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from there or what you learned during your time there?
Man, that was another locker room that was just phenomenal. Everybody, it was a brotherhood there, just like it was in the OVW locker room. Real like OVW was like a second family for me. A lot of I made some good friends there. Not everyone is in the business is great. Then there's some like some bad actors, some crappy people in the business, but I had some really good friends in OVW. And I could say the same with Ring of Honor. Like Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, who went on to, do very well. And there were some guys and Larry Sweeney, rest in peace, man. He was phenomenal. He was a phenomenal manager and a good worker too. But I had a lot of fun doing stuff. I was in a faction called Sweet and Sour Incorporated that, we were in Larry Sweeney's faction. It was, me and Bobby Dempsey and Sarah Del Rey and Chris Hero and we had other people, couple people come in and out of that. I think like maybe Matt Seidel and maybe Adam Pierce at one point. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a good time. And just my takeaways out of that were like, I went into that after being in the WWE and being like, how are some of these people not on TV right now in the WWE? Because they're phenomenal. Like Claudio Castagnoli, I was like, how is he not in the WWE? He is, and to this day, I will still say, for his size and he's one of the most incredibly talented, strong, athletic people I have ever seen, like in and out of the ring. I mean, he's phenomenal, and he's the nicest guy. Such a nice guy. Yeah, such a nice guy.
I remember him doing the big spin to Great Khali, which was just so impressive.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm a body guy, and I've worked out my entire life, and I'm very I'm strong, and I just see him, and you look at him, and you're like, okay, he's in shape, but like he's got to be incredibly just naturally strong to be able to do some of the stuff he does. And that swing it's incredible. It's incredible. So yeah, very athletic and just a super nice guy. And Chris Hero, he should have been up in that WWE. I'm telling you, man, it pisses me off. They had him be Cassius Ohno, one of the many people they screwed up in that business. Vince did some bonehead things with and creative in general, because they have to put their stamp on things, their mark on things, like it's their idea. And Hero was one of them. Luckily, Claudio ended up being Cesaro and did well. But like Colt Cabana is another one that should have, done something. I mean, he was so over. I mean, it wasn't like he did anything phenomenal, but he was over. He knew how to get himself over. And, and Matt Seidel was another one that was, end up being Evan Bourne or something like that up in the WWE. That was like, I'm glad he got a shot. And then obviously Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, I'm glad he got his shake, and Generico, who, Sami Zayn, and oh man, so many guys. I was like, when I was wrestling there and they were there, and also Danielson. Danielson was there at the time, and just some really talented guys. And you're just like, these guys right now could go right up and be over and awesome and make the product so much better. So, yeah. But, like I said, like sometimes WWE wants to make you something else than what you should be. And it is what it is. It is what it is. Like, that's why I was glad that CM Punk stuck to his guns, and he didn't let them change him. Sure. He's like, because I think they wanted to at one point say, we want you to be something else. He said, no, it's either I'm CM Punk or I'm not here. Yeah. And I have a lot of respect for that. And Paul Heyman stood behind him on that too, which was really cool. So, yeah.
I certainly feel like Colt Cabana is underrated because, not only is he great in the ring, but just the character that goes along with it. I mean, he's just so good. He really is.
He's so good. He knows how to get himself over. He knows how to connect with the fans. Yeah. And that's something that a lot of workers, I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you can do every move in the book, you're technical as hell. If you can't connect with the fans and you can't get yourself over, who cares? Who cares? There's some guys in the business that are really good, but you just don't have that it factor, that ability to connect and draw people in and to give a crap about you, So, yeah.
Another match I wanted to touch on specifically, just because it seems like such a unique match and a very cool atmosphere. OVW Six Flags 2005, the Blonde Bombers and Mr. Ken Anderson against the Dudley Boys and your former partner Chris Cage. What was that experience like doing it at Six Flags?
Oh man, we had those shows. I think we did them like once a month in the summer, and they were always so much fun because it was at Six Flags in the Batman Stunt Arena, and it was a good sized place, and it would get filled up pretty good, and they would always have like, a main draw, like they'd have Ric Flair come in and they had Papa Pump and Batista, and they'd always have the guys come down, and there would be like a main guy coming in for the match, and Jericho and guys like that, and Lawler, and so it was really cool to go and work an outdoor show like that. And I remember we had that match against them, and I just remember, getting some ideas in the back, and it was a lot of fun because they're so smart, with their tag team stuff. So to be able to work with them and get their feedback and to have the ability to learn from them, it was really cool. And just to go out there in front of all those people and put on a good show, it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I felt the same way, when I worked with some of the other guys, during that time, but they were definitely really some of the top people to work with and learn from. Yeah. Yeah.
Any memories of the Heartthrobs, another team to come out of the New England area you guys worked with?
Yeah, man. I'm still in a fantasy league with Thomas, the Promise. Still in we still have like a wrestling fantasy league with Sunday us, the guy, the OVW guys, and Tommy Dreamer and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But those are good guys, and Johnny Roselli just had his retirement match not too long ago. Yeah. Really cool to see him do that, and it's like his home area, which was awesome. But yeah, they were really good to work with. They were very giving and easy to work with because we just bounce ideas off each other and try and make each other look as good as possible and have a fun match. So they're a lot of fun to work with and smart in the ring, smart guys, and talented. And it was funny because they ended up doing a similar gimmick to what ours was in the WWE, but they just did it on Raw. And, unfortunately, neither one of us, our tag teams went as far as we would like to have gone, but hey, that's the business.
Right. Exactly. Now, Howard Finkel, let's talk about Howard real quick. Obviously you were both there at the same time, and he's such a legendary figure and just such a genuine guy. Any experiences that you could share with us about Howard?
Other than the fact that he was just always so nice. He was such a nice guy. And I just remember being a kid watching him, the Fink, and it was just awesome. And so I, just talking to him, and he would tell a couple stories here and there, and he was just a nice person, just a really nice person. And but I didn't have a super amount of interaction with him overall, but whenever I did, it was always pleasant. It was always really nice. And I had nothing but good things to say about that guy. Yeah.
In 2005, you had an entire loop basically of house shows for WWE where you would work with Legion of Doom, Heidenreich, and Road Warrior Animal. What I wanted to ask you about is the repetition of house shows. I think is great for just kind of, staying with it and knowing, what to do next and your body being in control. Nowadays you have a lot of time off, which is nice. You get to see your family, you spend more time, but how do you think that affects kind of getting rid of most of the house shows, how that affects your in-ring ability, if it does at all?
I mean, I wouldn't say it really affects your in-ring ability too much. I mean, if anything, it prolongs it, I think, because you definitely, like we talk in the business about having a bump card, you only have so many bumps in you. But it definitely, it's good. It's good in the fact that it can prolong your career, and it can, it helps you recover and everything like that. But at the same time, when you're doing shows and you're like working people in dark matches, before a TV show and you're working up to things. It's like, and you're just working with each other all the time. It really does give you the ability to get crisp and feel comfortable. And that definitely is helpful. And to work on different things and just try things and see what works, see what doesn't, see what crowds react to, see what they don't. So I like it for that aspect, but I mean, if I will never take away from being in the business and when I was, because it was cool. It was cool in the aspect of I got to meet a lot of the guys that I really idolized and thought it was great to watch them and then get to be in the same business as them. But I mean, a big part of me wishes I could have been in the business today, like at that level, at the pro, the top level, because, I think there's more opportunity for a guy like my height, my size, because now you got all shapes and sizes. It's not just a big guy game. It's just like how good are you? How much can you get yourself over? And also, I like it because, like you said, you're not breaking your body down as much because you're not doing as many shows. And then there's the other aspect that I really wish we had at the time was the ability to be on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok to be able to brand yourself, because man, that's such another avenue that, to be able to take yourself and be able to market yourself, be your own brand, and then take it when you're, outside of wrestling and be able to continue to build yourself and build your brand, build your career, build your marketing and make money in other avenues other than just busting your ass in the ring. So, yeah.
And in ring, what was it like working with Heidenreich and Animal?
I love my boy John. I love him. He's crazy as hell. But man, it's just, man. Sometimes I think he really thought it was real. Because man, there's sometimes he would like, and he's so nice. He never meant to. He would not mean to stiff you on purpose. He just wanted to make it look good. But man, there's a couple times I was up in that doomsday device on top of Animal's shoulders, and Heidenreich came off the top. One time I remember he came off that top rope and wham, he hit me so hard. And I remember he gave me a stinger, what a stinger is, like where you're he gave me a stinger and just felt like my whole arm was on fire. And it was for the pin, and he pins me. And I'm like, I'm trying not to writhe around in pain while they're pinning me. And then I'm like, it's funny because it actually hurt, but I couldn't sell it.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I had to sell the move and not so much the fact that I was really hurting. And I remember we were going to do the same thing the next night. And I was like, John, buddy, I was like, hey, when you come off tonight, please just like nice and easy, man. Nice and easy. I swear I will flip off and I'll make it look like you knocked my block right off. And okay. Yeah, no problem, man. Hey, man. Hey, yeah, I got you. Wham! He gave me a second stinger. 2 nights in a row, stinger. I could not. I remember I was back in the gym and it was nerve damage, so I could not even do half as much with that side for like a couple months, just because of the nerve damage. But
wow.
But yeah, but he's such a nice guy, funny guy, crazy guy. And then Animal, man, God, he was, he was one of the guys I'd watch, as a kid, and it was awesome, Legion of Doom. I mean, that's a big deal. But yeah, he's super, super nice guy. Not a big fan of his brother, but I really liked him a lot. Yeah. So his brother can take a hike. So,
yeah.
As a lot of people feel.
Right. So Tim White, another kind of a cornerstone backstage. Any interactions with Tim over the years, the late Tim White?
Yeah. Tim was really cool. Really nice guy. He was always just there he was actually a very entertaining guy. He'd tell a lot of stories. He had Andre the Giant stories and all kinds of stuff, and he was a very nice, entertaining guy. And I just feel like, there's certain people in the business that you're like, man, it's like certain people in the business, you're like, I feel like you shouldn't be here. you know. And I think he was just such a nice guy, and I feel like, and not in a bad way, like you shouldn't be here. It's just like, because sometimes, like, especially up in WWE at that time, it was just like there was a lot of like, there's some like negative energy and just like, you know, some cancerous type people, you know, like that, it made it tough, you know. And but like when you had some of the good people, that was always really, really nice. Like, like Mick Foley was one of the nicest guys, you know. He was like one of the nicest guys you could meet. So it's like always good when you met the people that you watched and they were good people. So yeah. So, but like, you know, hey, it's the business. So
Right. What were your interactions like with Vince McMahon?
It was few. It was few. I didn't have to interact with them that much. And like, you know, we all know in the business, the first thing you would always want to do when you show up to the arena is find out what kind of mood Vince is in. So you could either know to go right up to him and say hi, or to try and fly under the radar and maybe hopefully not even see him for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know, he, you know, whenever I did have to interact with him, I was a small potato, you know, for him. And he was the one that came up with the idea of being a Chippendale, though. So it was, we were coming out as, you know, just, you know, guys in black slacks and tank tops from the crowd, because at first they were going to put us with Nova when he was doing his Simon Dean gimmick, but they ended up just having us come out from the crowd and take out whoever was in the ring at the time. And one time I was in there, we were taking, you know, whoever it was out, and I ripped off my shirt, and when I went to the back, Vince was like, "Oh, I really like the way you ripped off that shirt. It reminded me of like a Chippendale." And he's like, next week, I want you to come back. Like, I want you guys to come back in like Chippendale outfits, just so I can get a look at and see what I think of it. And I was like, all right, you know. So next week, you know, over the week, we got, you know, Chippendale outfits from our seamstress, and came back and showed me. He's like, I love it. I love the way you guys look. I think I got an idea. And, you know, it was during the days of you know, not the best ideas, when you got like, you know, guys like Matt Morgan, and they decide to give him a stutter. And it's like, he's almost 7 foot tall. That is his gimmick. He's a monster. He's a big dude. He can work. He's athletic. He could talk. He's smart, you know, and you decide to give him a stutter. It's like, yeah. But that's the way it was back then, you know. It's just like one of those things where, you know. And then the Dicks came from Michael Hayes. That's where that came from. Yeah, Michael Hayes decided, you know, he's like, what if we call him the Swinging Richards, you know? And because Stephanie said, hey, come up with a name for you guys to be, you know, a tag team, you know, something wrestling, but, you know, Chippendale or something. So, you know, I talked with Nova, and, you know, we were bouncing around ideas, and came to, we just said, hey, how about Weapons of Mass Seduction? You know, that would be cool, you know? And I told Stephanie that, and, you know, it was an earshot of Michael Hayes. And I was like, Stephanie, what about Weapons of Mass Seduction? And she's like, I love it. And he goes, what about the Swinging Richards? And then, you know, I was like, I look over, and he's like, I'm going to go tell Vince that right now. And he takes off to go tell Vince. And I look at Stephanie, and she's like, don't worry, I'll handle it. But 10 minutes before we're going out for our matches, she's like, oh, you guys are going to be the Dicks. You're going to be James Dick. He's going to be Chad Dick. And I was like, wow. All right. I guess that's what it is. So.
Wow. All right. So 2006 Velocity, you'd lock it up with Bobby Lashley. Any memories working with Bobby?
Bobby, man. Bobby was just a beast. Super nice guy. Very soft-spoken. Very soft-spoken guy. I remember when he came, and, you know, he wrestled for Army, and he's like a legit good wrestler and fighter, obviously. You know, and strong as an ox. But really, really cool guy. And I got along with Bobby well. A lot of respect for Bobby. Happy for all of his success that he has had in the business. It's not a surprise. He's one of those guys, though. I wasn't ever sure, like, because he's so impressive looking, but like the way he moved at first when he first started working was a little bit more robotic. And sometimes some of those people that came from the wrestling background or judo or whatever, like Santino Morello, he was very robotic at first, especially the way they tried to, work with him at first, another character in OVW. But they took to it and they got it under their belts. And Bobby did very well considering how green he was in OVW. And then obviously he got a lot better as time went on. As if you have the ability to do so and you're learning from the best people in the business, then, of course you're going to get better. But yeah, it was always good working with Bobby. It was fun. It was a fun time. And he was always very good at listening, and he had a very good head on his shoulders. He was smart guy, both in and out of the ring. He knew how to be in the business and how to be outside the business. He was a very professional person and a good guy to work with. Strong as anything, though, man. Oof. He was one of those guys that had like crazy strength. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So who was the most helpful and easygoing backstage for you during your time in WWE?
Nova was one of the guys that really helped me a lot, just being around him, learning from him about, the business. I really appreciated Mike, and everything he did. But I learned from a lot, I learned a lot from, Lance Storm. I learned a lot from Lance Storm and Al Snow. Backstage, when the shows are going on, you try and talk to some people. I talked to Benoit a few times and, he helped me, give me feedback on things. Angle a couple times would give me advice after some of the matches. But I mean, like, really for me, a lot of what I got back, and the Undertaker gave me some stuff too a few times, but really it was really guys like Rip Rogers and Al Snow and Lance Storm and guys that were training us every day, because even though we'd still come back and do shows outside of that. So I mean, like for OVW television and stuff.
All right. So how can fans follow you? Fans that are looking to, follow your career and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, they could always feel free to hit me up on TikTok at Tank Toland, Instagram at Tank Toland, X at the Tank Toland or the Tank Toland, and then Facebook Tank Toland. Search Tank Toland or John Toland or whatever. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And as far as your training regimen, you've stayed in such great shape all these years. You're still to this day in great shape. What is your training regimen been like over the years?
Man, I started out, I mean, like I said, I started when I was 11. So I started hitting it pretty hard from the start. And I my training regimen was always like, at least 5 days a week, take maybe a couple of days. But there was a time where I was going every day, even though I probably should have given myself a break. But I just was, had that passion, had that fire. And, and then I got, got into a point where I did some all natural bodybuilding competitions and was, did pretty well there. Won a couple of those, which was good. Just kept training hard, like, sometimes 2 a days, especially when I was wrestling. When I was wrestling, we're trying to get into the up to the top, the business, WWE. I mean, I'd be in that gym twice a day, doing 2 a days. And I remember every rep was either like, I'd be like WWE. So yeah, pretty intense. And still this day, still doing it. And you're frozen again.
Well, John Tank Toland, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it here on the All Access podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I'll be up to see you soon on April 10th up at Lucky Pro.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out. Very nice, man. Well,
Sounds
for Tank Toland, Mr. John himself, thank you so much. And we will see you all next time. It's All Access Entertainment Podcast. I've been your host, Joe Bruen. Don't forget to leave your comments. Love to hear from you, the fans. And we'll see you all next time.